account into her account. Bribe is not done that way. I've not given bribe before. Maybe those who claim I do, maybe I don't know how to give bribe. Maybe that's why I did it like that.
And Top Story, as always, is brought to you by Airtel, by Vodafone further together. Now, businessman Alfred Agbeshi Woyome is tonight fighting the General Legal Counsel. Mr. Woyome is challenging the decision of the GLC to disbar embattled Chief State Attorney Samuel Nekwe Tete over the transfer of 400,000 cedis into his wife's account by Mr. Woyome. The money was transferred by the businessman at a time the Chief State Attorney was leading the state's case against him in a high-profile case. Well, today, Mr. Woyome has been addressing a news conference a day after the decision of GLC went public. He insists he has never and will never pay a bribe. He claims the state prosecutor is being victimized. Listen to him explain why he transferred the money.
With Mr. Nekwe Tete is in all the documents that I've just sent you to. These are long issues and other things. But simply to put, Mrs. Nekwe Tete had become my friend. And Nekwe Tete was facing a health issue which I cannot talk about here. Okay? And for that reason, I did that. And nobody give bribe by asking the person, come to my bank, open an account in my bank. And then the person come and open an account in your bank and you transfer money from your own account into her account. Bribe is not done that way. I've not given bribe before. Maybe those who claim I do, maybe I don't know how to give bribe. Maybe that's why I did it like that. No, we don't give bribe that way. So it was an account opened, which is traditionally what I do. Many of the politicians, both in NDC and NPP, high ranking, they wanted to go to London and things like that. I did the same thing to them. Those ones that are for borrowing, I make sure that there is this trace. So the same thing was for Ms. Nekwe. You are a lady, you are a woman. So when I say that's a health problem, sometimes we have wrongly persecuted this woman. It's bad. It's my money.
But considering the role that Mr. Nekwe Tete was playing in this
okay,
case,
good.
The concern is that that transfer could influence the case.
The case, okay. Mr. Nekwe Tete had no discussion with me on this matter. I had no case and discussion with Mr. Nekwe Tete. He might have been coming with his minister at that time and things like that. And therefore, even some of the internal memos that I perchance have all indicates really that Nekwe Tete was not in charge. There was a different case officer who was in charge. If you go into the court case, you see those who were in charge of the whole thing. See, I will want you to go into the court cases than this issue of say. It's a media house. You have research people, you have things so that you can sit on authority that I can say he did this, he did that, he did that. I had no discussion with Mr. Nekwe Tete. The first discussion was with government departments, former LOCs and things like that, and every other person, including their own documentations and things. And that has reflected in the Court of Appeal judgment copiously.
What reasons were given by the GLC for refusing you to be joint party to that particular case against Nekwe Tete?
Not, get it right, not joint party. I wanted to.
Okay.
And later on, they didn't want my lawyer to just come in. They said, okay, so I became a witness. And so it served the same purpose. So they have all the knowledge and everything, including with my witness statement. And also their knowledge that this case has been handled, all the reference they are making, there is a... I've shown you 2 court of appeal, quorum, 3 people, unanimous decisions, dealing with this matter and mentioning them copiously. So for them to go ahead and do this one, it's just to drag my name. This gentleman, Nekwe and other people, are suffering because of me. Every time it's Woyome Madrasa, something must be made to have Nekwe got the power to sign anything or to withdraw anything or to advise President Mills or the Chief of Staff or anything. Is it not under the, what do you call it, the Attorney General? So did the Attorney General complain that Nekwe didn't go to do case or something like that? It's the narrative of other people. If you go in there to look at the court cases, the Attorney General's own witness in the whole thing, that is 9. We call it witness number 9, Mr. Ahmed Musa. Persecution witness number 9, Ahmed Musa. Go and you read everything that he has said. Okay, is it not funny that that day you arrested, so-called arrest, because converted to tell you people have been arrested? Because on what basis? What court will we need to make why arrested me? On what basis? I understand me? The so-called purported arrest and the prosecution of Nekwetete and Mrs. Nekwetete. The same Attorney General issued a nolle prosequi. A nolle prosequi, discontinued. Then, after you have gone the preliminary case and you've lost 1, you've lost 2, you've lost 3, and go on court of appeal yourself, and you lose it. Then you go on internal investigation. When you are barred from doing that and disturbing somebody on this basis, meaning you are journalists and you are Ghanaians, you should rise up against this nonsense. This nonsense. Some people promise me, they know it's phantom. I'm not part of that contract. It's phantom. This thing should not continue. That woman and you women in this country should be able to, because many women are also beneficiaries of the same thing I've done to Mrs. Nakwe. Many women and many homes.
Let's get interactive on this matter by bringing in private legal practitioner Martin Pegbu on this. Grateful to you, sir, for joining us here. Now, the Alfred Woyome is speaking after this decision by the Ghana Legal Council to disbar Mr. Nekwetete. He says what he did was for humanitarian purposes, not to bribe Nekwetete. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so could you look? It's not possible. It's not legally allowed for Mr. Woyome to do what he did at the time. It's indefensible. That's how come, and so putting it plainly, it's against the ethics of the profession. That's how come the General Legal Council found Mr. Nekwetete liable. He needn't have done so. Look, okay, let's put it this way. If it was so genuine, it needn't have come from Mr. Woyome himself. He could have asked a friend to do that. Not when Mr. Nekwetete had something to do with the case. You can't, there's no way he can justify it. And you see, let's look at it this way, Kojo. It's sometimes silence is golden. You don't need to speak. I'm even wondering why Woyome is speaking, because the more he speaks, then the more he reminds us about how he is embarrassed as a nation with what he did. Yeah, because as he is even talking now, if he has money to give on humanitarian grounds, the first question he should be asking is that, has he finished paying back the judgment debt? You see, so when he speaks, then he reminds us, he's taking us for fools. Has Woyome paid the judgment debt? That money that he was paid to, the Supreme Court held in the civil case on review, that he should refund that money. Has he finished paying? Because the last time I knew, some of his company assets, those were attached and all that. But I know that he hasn't finished paying. So he should learn how to keep quiet.
Oh, but he did this when the case was still being heard. The determination had not come yet. He says Nekwetete was only accompanying the AG to court, and therefore, he didn't have that much influence on the case. So helping his wife never meant that he wanted to interfere in the case.
Hey, no, you see, it may well be, but when it comes to conflict of interest, when it comes to matters like this, It's not always the real one, but it's also what? Apparent. It may be the optics. He says now, you see, he's saying Nekwetete used to follow AG, Chief State Attorney. He's saying he was just babysitting AG. Hey, Chief State Attorney, that's the highest, I mean, not, yes, from Chief State Attorney, you go to Solicitor General or DPP. So it's a very senior position. So it's untenable to say that Nekwetete was just babysitting AG. No, he shouldn't. That's why I said that Mr. Woyomi needn't have spoken, especially when he still hasn't finished paying the judgment debt. Elsewhere, he would have been in jail, even in civil matters. You think in China, he would have been working free and having the effrontery to say all these things that he's saying. No wonder our country is backward like this, that we can't develop, because people like that have access to state money they've spent, and now they can come on radio and say anything that they like. I mean, come on, what's Woyomi doing with this? He should just stay out of this matter. He's had his chance, he blew it. Our state money is still with him. So if he wants to contribute to such debates, he must make sure that he's finished paying even the last peswa. Then he can give his personal lectures and opinions.
But
what
if
he's doing now is disturbing.
What if he's being truthful? That in fact and indeed, he only did that to help the woman who was in need of an emergency, and not really to have caused Nekwetete to influence the case in any way on his behalf.
So let me repeat. It's good. Sometimes the repetitions help. So I mentioned that, yes, it may well be true that in truth, that is it, right? But the optics, we are talking about the optics. You don't do that. Because for this, it's brought the high standing of the legal profession into disrepute. The dignity of the profession has been brought down. That is what the General Legal Council is saying. As soon as anybody hears it, that the lawyer for the government has received money from the accused or defendant, they say the first is that, then the case is compromised. Then they are compromising him. You see, so that's that first thing. So either real or apparent. And I made the analogy to you that it's also in the Constitution, Article 284. So you see that when we talk about conflict of interest, which is very close also to what he did, and another way, he could have been held for violation of the conflict of interest rules. And in that case, you see that they will tell you that real or apparent, so or likely. So listen to this, Article 284, just briefly. It says, a public officer shall not put himself in a position where his personal interest conflicts, that's the actual, or is likely to conflict with the performance of the functions of his office. So you see that likely, so that's the optics part. As soon as anybody hears it, they say, no. Then he has been compromised. He's going to throw the case. He's going to suppress evidence. He's going to do everything within his power to help Woyomi. So that one, we may never know. That's how come Woyomi shouldn't have done that in the first place.
So you're saying that, I mean, one of his arguments is that, okay, so that was my own money. Why is everyone talking about it? But you are saying that because Mr. Nekwetete had something to do with the case, even though it was his money, it still shouldn't have gotten into the account of someone related to him.
Absolutely. That is it. Because we can never tell. Because the rule is in two parts. Even bringing the bar into disrepute, what he was charged with, Regulation 22 of the old rules, LI 619. That's the one that he was charged with. Bringing down the dignity of the bar and the high standing of the bar. Yes, as soon as anybody sees or hears about the facts, they say, no. Why has this lawyer done this? Then it means that the bar is affected. Everybody. You see, so it cannot be justified. The humanitarian bit is not enough excuse to embarrass the whole bar. That's not enough. Assuming, why did he have to do it himself? So is he saying that as Mr. Woyomi, he doesn't know any friend that he could have spoken to for that friend to help?
Okay. Now, so you're saying that now that he's even started speaking, we should go and ask if he has been able to finish paying the judgment debt.
Absolutely.
whose work is it to now come and tell us whether or not he's paid? And I mean, who should make that move to find out how much of that money has he paid?
Good. So, Kojo, what I understand you to be doing is you're talking about hard law. But let's also remember that there's no society where you can have every conceivable law to cover every situation. In this case, there's law. But I'm just saying that there are some of the things, there is what we call ANA. In our society, that is what is lacking. Personal ethics, ANA. Elsewhere, okay, the ANA that people have is even stronger than the hard letter law. So to say that, well, the Attorney General has not chased me, that's why I've not paid the balance, will sound ill in Mr. William's mouth. Doesn't he know that he owes? So there's also personal honor. Article 41 says that citizens should do what? Everything to protect state resources. So if state resources are with you and the Attorney General has not come, what is wrong with you also walking up there and offering it? Don't we have honor? So let's be careful not to say that, oh, the law doesn't say I should send the money. No, as a citizen, a good citizen, Article 41 means that take it to the state if the state hasn't come after you.
Okay, so I mean, being a good citizen, he should do that. But still, stay with me because it appears tonight that ministers designate, and especially the minister designate for Works and Housing, Kojo Nkrumah, and the other reassigned ministers have a major hurdle to cross before they face Parliament's appointment committee. This is because NDC MP for South Dai, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamapo, is threatening to head to the Supreme Court if a number of reassigned ministers and deputies are not brought before Parliament for prior approval. 5 ministers of state were reassigned to other ministries while a deputy minister was also reassigned. But Roxanne Nelson Dafiamapo is arguing that the president's letter stated that the ministers had been relieved of their duties and so any new appointment, even of the same persons, must be subject to parliamentary approval. We'll hear from the MP shortly. First, though, Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kwaku Asante joins me with further context. Kwaku, take us through the letter from the president on this ministerial reshuffle.
Well, Kojo Brace, if you look at the press release that was put out by the Communications Directorate of the Jubilee House, it said, A, exit from office. And reads, the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has relieved the following ministers and deputy ministers of their portfolios in government with immediate effect. And that includes Kojo Nkrumah, that includes Francis Asensio-Boakye, and the other ministers and deputies who have been reassigned. Roxanne Nelson Dafiamapo's argument is that if you read this, the President clearly said he has sacked these persons. And so if you are reappointing these persons, they must come to Parliament for vetting and approval. The challenge, though, is that this is the press release that was put out by the Communication Directorate of the Jubilee House. The letter that was written under the hand of the President
To the
speaker did not couch it in these terms.
Okay.
They just simply stated that these are the persons have now appointed. Those are the persons who have to come for vetting. And those ones that he is informing Parliament about, that these persons will have to, as it were, be reassigned to other ministries. So there is a certain chasm difference in what Eugene Ahen signed and put in the public domain and the letter that the president sent directly to the president. But let's listen to the argument of the member of parliament.
Let me anchor this matter within the premise of Article 81 of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, Article 81 of the Constitution is the effect that the office of a Minister of State or a Deputy Minister shall become vacant if A, his appointment is revoked by the President. Mr. Speaker, the President issued a letter publicly indicating the number of ministers that he has, whose appointments he has revoked with immediate effect. Mr. Speaker, the meaning can only be that those number of ministers and the names of the ministers whose names appear on that release, they be immediately relieved of their post. But Mr. Speaker, a very strange happening. The communication proceeded further to say that some 5 ministers whose names appeared among those who have been relieved of their post immediately have rather been reassigned. Mr. Speaker, by operation of law, when the president says that he has revoked your appointment, You are no longer a minister of state. You are no longer a minister of state. And so there's no way the president can say that he is reassigning those persons. So I am saying, on the authority of the Constitution, that those persons' appointments have been revoked by the president. But the Constitution mandates him to reappoint them. But that reappointment must be subject to the parliamentary scrutiny of this House. This call is not heeded, Mr. Speaker. We'll proceed to the Supreme Court for interpretation.
Well, so that's Nelson Roxon Dafiamepo there. Now, what has been the response of the majority to this?
Well, the majority leadership say this is much ado about nothing. According to Deputy Majority Leader Alexander Afenyomakin, you have to construe. According to Alexander Afenyomakin, you need to construe the entire letter that was sent by the president in whole, and also really hammering on the point that Roxon Nelson Afenyomakin may be relying on the wrong documents to make his arguments.
Mr. Speaker, the basic rule of interpretation is that we look at the document as a whole. We don't have to disjointly read. When we disjointly read the document, we are likely to mislead those who are to listen to us. The president used one communication to communicate his intent and his decision. The words he used were relief, that he has relieved them of their portfolio. Roxon, you would have to keep quiet and listen. That he has relieved them of their portfolio in government. And in the same communication, the next paragraph, he again conveyed to us that these people have been reassigned. Anyway, you are free to go to the Supreme Court. Mr. Speaker, I won't belabor.
Well, so that's the Deputy Majority Leader there. Now, joining us on the line now is MP for South Dai, Roxon Nelson Dafiamepo. Grateful to you, sir, for joining us. We also have the MP for South Asante Akim North, MP Andy Apia Kubi, and we know the Martin Pegbu is still with us here. Let me start with you, Nelson Dafiamepo. Have you seen the letter the president wrote to the speaker on which he's communicating the new arrangements?
Yes, clearly the president wrote his communication to Parliament. It's not different from his communication to the general public. What he has done is that those that he has termed as new appointees are those that he has communicated to Parliament for purposes of parliamentary scrutiny and vetting. He has clearly left out those whose names feature under the supposed umbrella term reassignment. But my point is very simple, and it's in consonance with case law. If you read D.H. Mensa and Attorney General, it was a similar situation that erupted in this country in 1997. When President Rawlings, at the time who has won a second term, sought to direct the ministers that served under him during his first term to continue in office. And our president, who was then a very senior lawyer in this country, led J.H. Mensa to the Supreme Court because J.H. Mensa raised the matter that there's nothing like reappointment because the Constitution is very clear in Article 81. When a minister's portfolio becomes vacant, that is the end. It has to be filled. And when you want to fill it, the Constitution mandates you to fill it. But there's a certain procedure the nominee must go through, and that is to go through parliamentary scrutiny and subsequent appointment. So whether you label them reappointment or not, you have to subject them to parliamentary scrutiny.
I'll let you make the point. But the official letter that the president wrote to the speaker does not make any point about someone being sacked. He says,
you are misconstruing the communication that was made publicly. The president doesn't need to inform Parliament in order to sack a minister. There's no such limitation on the president. So he can sack at will and inform the public that I have relieved certain ministers of state of their portfolio. That is his mandate. And he has done that. He could have ended there, and that would be the end of the exercise. But the president proceeds to say that I am reassigning certain number of ministers. And my point is that the ministers that the president supposedly says that he is reassigning, they feature among the list of ministers that whose portfolio he has revoked before. So you cannot revoke somebody's appointment and immediately after that say that you are reassigning that person. The person is no longer a portfolio holder, based upon which you can reassign him to another portfolio of a collateral nature.
But Honorable, I get you, but the letter I'm holding from the president, it says, following the reorganization of the government, I am writing to seek parliamentary approval for the following appointment into the executive, in accordance with Articles 78, 79, and 256 of the Constitution, and he names them. And then he says, I am also writing to you to inform you that the following ministers and deputy minister of state have been reassigned to new offices with immediate effect. So, I mean, the question is that, based on this letter, are you then justified to say the minister who is already a minister of state, who has been reassigned to a new office, should come to Parliament and be re-interviewed again for a ministerial portfolio?
You are missing the point. The president puts out a statement. Are you disregarding that statement?
Are you referring to? Because the statement signed.
Hold on. I am referring to the 14th of February statement.
Is that the one signed by the Director of Communications at the presidency?
Exactly.
But I mean, Honorable, you know that there's a letter the president has written to your house, giving you that respect. So why aren't you basing on that?
Hold on. The letter the president writes to the speaker is of a certain effect. The letter he writes to the general public is also of a certain effect. The president has first of all informed the Ghanaian populace that he has sacked a certain number of ministers. Is that letter to be taken serious or not? Is that letter supposed to have effect or not?
Okay, hold for me. Let me bring in Andy Apiakobi. Andy, you are also knowledgeable in law, just like your colleague. Tell me, did the president err in reassigning these ministers without them necessarily, having to come before the appointment committee? Hello, Andy Apiakobi. Hello, Honorable, do I have you?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. So I want to find out from you whether the president erred in any way in reassigning these ministers without them having necessarily to come before the appointment committee because they are already ministers.
It is within the mandate of the president to reassign already appointed ministers onto different portfolios. And in any case, if the president wishes to disengage any appointee, he has the prerogative to so do. But the complaint is about the mode of the appointment and disappointment. And I'm sure the complaint is about the disappointment and subsequent reassignment. And for me, I'm sure it was not clear as to what the president's intention was as per the reading of this letter.
Well, Honorable, can I read the letter to you? Maybe it could help you. Now, this letter says, I trust this finds you well and in good spirit. Following the reorganization of government, I am writing to seek parliamentary approval for the following appointment into the executive. And he names those ministers, which includes Honorable Kojo Opon Nkrumah, whose name or whose position has been contested here, that he has to come for appointment. He again says, I'm writing to inform you of the following ministers and deputy minister of state who have been reassigned to new offices without immediate effect. The argument is those who are ministers already, should they come before the appointment committee to be vetted again, or they could just assume their new office without having to come before the appointment committee?
If the letter is in reference, is only seeking to inform the speaker that he is reassigning already appointed ministers, there is no need for them to come for vetting, if that is the tone of the letter. But in an earlier communication, I'm sure Honorable Dafia Mepo said that part of the letter indicated that they have withdrawn the appointments of certain ministers, and on one side, re-engaging 7 ministers into different portfolios. I'm sure that is the bone of contention. But if it is just a letter informing the Speaker of reassignment of already appointed ministers of state, then they don't need to come to Parliament for any vetting.
Okay. Let me bring in Martin Pebwe. Martin, so you've listened to the argument from both sides. These are ministers already who have been given new offices. Should they go before an appointment committee or shouldn't they?
If we are using the Supreme Court decision in J.H. Mensah versus Attorney General, 1996-97 Supreme Court, then in that case, they have to go for prior approval. That's what the Supreme Court held. And let's just read a short part of it. It says that the effect of Article 78 and 79 of the 1992 Constitution was that the President's nominations for appointment as ministers or deputy ministers, listen to this, whether retained or new, so you see, whether retained or new, required the prior approval of Parliament. You say, so where you're looking is that, and he says that the article did not draw a distinction between fresh and reappointed ministers. Neither did it exempt, and listen to this side, you see, neither did it exempt any category of nominees from the requirement of prior approval. So the key thing is that once what you're going to do was not what you were doing previously, I think it's caught within the intendment of this decision, so that you require prior approval. And let's further quickly add 2 points. When they say approval, in this same J.H. Mensah case, that's the Supreme Court decision, it doesn't always require the full vetting and all that. No, it's within the powers of Parliament to agree that this for those who have already been vetted, but they're just transferring them or switching them around. They can just do a voice vote to say they approve. You don't need a long interview session. It's within the powers of Parliament to say that, look, this is the thing. They can just approve them by a voice vote. Okay? Then secondly, also, this same J.H. Mensah decision showed that when somebody is being nominated, because Parliament will take some time to organize, to vet them, etc., they can also act in the interim. They can act.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us here on this discussion. But just before we take a leave of you on Top Story, we were talking about Woyome, and he saying that the GLC disbarring the Nekwe Tete from the legal practice is just a witch hunt. Now, in this discussion, Mr. Martin Pebble brought up the issue about his judgment debt that he has to pay to the state. Now, Mr. Woyome has been speaking about this to my colleague, Mefa Apau. Listen.
What it purports is that if he were saying, you want to catch up to your connection, man, something like that, but can he influence the AG? Or can he influence finance minister or influence the president or the cabinet and so like that? He was not part of it. Read the records.
That is if he's not in charge of it. If he's in charge of the case,
he can.
He can.
He can do that.
He's in charge of the case, but you are saying he's not in charge of it.
No, he was not in charge of the case. What's the name of the guy? Cecil Adadevo. Cecil Adadevo. As to their internal workings and whatever they do in their internal things, I cannot speak to it because I won't have anything to do with it. And secondly, it was not based on any state attorney recommendation that this payment was done. It was based on the LOC and then the 3-member finance committee of Bank of Ghana. Are you getting me? 3-member committee of Bank of Ghana. The late Les Dodu and other people who confirmed everything. Is this too hard to believe? So those, when you get a judgment, you see the people who recommended, even the Ofue judgment. You see the people who did the recommendations. It is not any state attorney that has right. The whole they told them to do is go and fight him. And they have no defense. Do they have defense? In the meaning, it's a loose case. In fact, there is nothing in it. Today, I want to tell you, balloon, what do you call it? Pin, atom, everybody has seen that it's a zero move. What did I say? Say, be any. You understand me? So what we say we want to do, we will continue with it. One more question.
Substantively, though, the issue about the payments of the 51 million CDJs. You're told you paid 18 million, 30 million outstanding. What is the status of that payment, the repayment of that money?
Everything was paid. 80 million was ordered by the court. Then we went back to the court. Okay? And they decided to do a settlement. And that settlement was not even done by the AG. It was done.
Great news.